that potentially violent protest will infringe upon the free movement of people who are here with their families to enjoy what hopefully will be a pleasant day within the city. These powers are extraordinary. These powers are seldom used. We are considering our legal options at the moment. I personally believe we have reached threshold and we are getting advice of that. But I expect to know by tomorrow whether these powers will be available to us. Just because they're available to us does not necessarily mean they have to be used. And we will not be using the full extent of the powers, which can lock the city down. We don't intend to do that. We intend to search people that we believe are likely to protest or have shown an interest in protesting based on the fact that weapons and flares, the experiences of Monday night, and we'll also be demanding they provide us with their identity so that they can not disguise themselves in the crowd and engage in some of the behaviour that took place on Monday night without fear of retribution because they're in a disguised state. So we will be demanding of certain individuals their identity, and it will be an offence not to disclose that identity to us.
When were these powers last used? Have they?
They are used seldomly. It's been a while. They were initiated after the Cronulla riots, and they've been used intermittently since then, based on a needs basis. And I think the threshold at the moment, with what might be coming over the next 48 hours prior to the proposed assembly on Sunday, enables us, and it's a fluid environment, let me say that. We don't know exactly what's going to happen overseas, what might escalate over the period. That's why they're currently under consideration in relation to that threshold test.
Commissioner, did the police have an estimate of how many people could turn up on Sunday? Is that factored into that use?
Early indications from social media is possibly 300-400. That was a similar number that was through social media and through organisers last Monday. However, that's swelled at different times to, we believe, approximately 1,500. So not everyone responds through social media as to whether they're going to attend an event.
You weren't satisfied with them moving from Town Hall to Hyde Park and then declaring this would be a static protest, which basically says they're not going to move on the streets of Opera. You weren't satisfied with that. You're saying that there's an inability by this group to control the crowd.
I think the experience of Monday have shown that, have proven that, and the admitted inability by the organisers of the event, who's come out in the media and said that he can't control who attends, apart from them, causes us great concern. As I said, there are other alternatives for people to show their passion. And other alternatives, other groups are working with police, are submitting Form 1s. We are working with them as, through these very difficult times, within the community. There's passions running wild within the community in relation to this, but we must remember that the actions that happened in Israel last Saturday were by a terrorist group.
Do you believe the organisers had violent intent, or simply they can't guarantee you that anyone connected with the protest as well?
I think the latter. They can't guarantee their potentially peaceful protest will be hijacked by others. And when they refuse to engage with us, when they don't engage at the same level as other organisers do, it becomes very difficult to think any other way.
Can I get your view on what the ASIO boss has said? There was two parts to it. The first part was warning about the use of inflamed language, in particular from politicians or other media organisations. How concerned are you about some of the language that you're seeing out there and whether that's escalated tensions? And the second thing that ASIO said was that there was a chance for opportunistic violence. Are there any actors specifically that exist within New South Wales that you are watching, that you are concerned about?
In relation to actors that might leverage off the activities that are ongoing at the moment, we obviously have a very preventative approach to terrorism and violence in general. Our counter-terrorism command is working tirelessly in relation to working with community groups to test that atmosphere. We haven't seen anything at this stage that causes me concern. Having said that, the ASIO Director General has not increased the threat level in relation to terrorism within Australia. So at this stage, it's a monitoring process for us to assess that temperature within the community. That can change at any minute. As I said, escalations in the Middle East might cause that change, and that's why this is a very fluid process where the executive team of the New South Wales Police Force is discussing it, not daily, but at the moment hourly.
How much have you spoken to the police minister this week, and how much involvement has he had in police's planning for Sunday?
The operational decisions in relation to how we police are really ours. We have informed the police minister of our intentions, and at this stage she has not shown any contrary opinion to what we're proposing.
Commissioner, is it your understanding that the city police will advise members of the Jewish community to stay away from the city on Monday night?
Is it my?
Not your understanding.
I'm unaware of that. The advice I got was that an alternative viewpoint had been provided or was suggested from the overseas passenger terminal to view the Opera House rather than where protesters were gathering. That's the advice I received on Monday, and I haven't seen a purpose to try and explore that further, but I certainly can.
Do you have any understanding who essentially told its members of the Jewish community to stay away?
No, I don't.
There's the issue being stoked here because we've got the police saying we're not going to allow the protest, and now later this afternoon you've got Palestinian groups and civil liberty groups are also having a news conference meeting and saying, look, they're being restricted to express their grief and their feelings as well. They should be allowed to protest. I mean, is this going to end up in court? Do you think? How's this going to play out?
The way the law and the way our community and society dictates what the law is people do have a right to protest. But there's responsibilities that come with that. And that's to do in a peaceful manner, which is not the behaviour we saw on Monday. And I don't think anyone could be tolerant of what we saw on Monday night. Certainly we're not, and we don't want a repeat of that.
Do you get their argument though that this was a fringe group, and will you, promise to, use these special powers only to tackle that fringe group?
It's of concern to us that the organisers can't prevent outsiders coming into their group to protest. If the organisers worked better with us to identify who those individuals might be, that might be possible. However, at this stage, that's not the case. We will attempt to further engage with organisers to ensure that anything they're planning for Sunday is done as peacefully as possible. We don't prohibit anyone from the right to protest, but there are peaceful manners in which that can happen. Other community groups are certainly showing that they're working with police, and we are assisting in facilitating that process.
You mentioned the stop and search part of these powers, and the fact you can ask them for their ID. Do they go further than that?
Special powers can go further than that. At this stage, I would suggest that we are not looking to exercise anything further than that.
Talk about these extraordinary powers. Aside from those, is there anything that police can actually do to stop people gathering in a park if they're not blocking any public roads? Can that sort of gathering actually be called unauthorised if they're just in a park?
The protest is unauthorised because it hasn't been approved by the police because the Form 1 wasn't submitted within the 7-day required time frame. Having said that, pardon me, there were 1,800 protests last year. Only half of those had Form 1s. We try to facilitate peaceful protests where we can, but that's based on intelligence, that's based on the environment, and that's based on the temperature of the community at the time. I would suggest that the temperature of the community at the current time is highly escalated, and we need to take that into account with everything we do and every decision we make in relation to allowing these. It's not illegal for 100 or 1,000 people or whatever, whoever show up on Sunday to meet in Hyde Park. It's the behaviour that they engage in following that is of concern to us. What happened on Monday night cannot be repeated.